it out.
That happens.
I brought 2 books with me.
Okay, let's go.
For CDI.
I don't see any, there we go. Okay. I want to call the November 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Municipal Building Commission to order at, it's probably 5:58. Good news is we don't have to do roll calls because we're here in person. So Jeremy will be very happy tonight. For the record, we have Kelly, Andrew, and Mike who are not in attendance, but we do have a quorum.
Who has designed and constructed schools all over the Commonwealth. And Rick has been with us for just about 5 years. And we have a PowerPoint if I can share my screen.
Jim says go ahead.
Let's do that. Slideshow.
Okay, we've got it.
In existing buildings, that's what we do. That's our experience. On our team also, we have a hazardous material consultant, obviously you know why, and a cost estimator, PM&C, who we've been working with for over 15 years. Our capabilities, as I said, in architecture and structural engineering, building envelope is a specialty, and of course, historic restoration. We also have a sustainability and code group. We specialize in commissioning, which is where we actually are hired by DCAM and MS Floors and Waltham and doing studies on other schools throughout the Commonwealth. I'd say our design philosophy starts with the whole idea of solving your problems. That's our goal. This is not an ego-centric process. About this particular project and how, as the project manager, you would attack this project.
Sure, Michael, can you please move on to slide number 6?
Sure. How's that?
Yeah, I'm not seeing slide number 6 on the screen.
You see any slides?
No, I just see the first slide, the very first slide.
I'm sorry, has everybody else been seeing the slides I've been showing?
We haven't seen any slides except for the first one.
Oh, well, I've been showing many slides. Hold on. Let's see.
Is your computer frozen?
Who's on there as well? Rick.
It says we're sharing screen.
You are.
If you go to slideshow,
Let me stop the share. Let me go back to share. And I will go to here. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yes.
Design
Yes.
approach?
Yep.
perfect.
If wait a minute, if I go back one slide, can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's what I was talking about before. Okay.
Well,
here we go.
thank you, Michael. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to review your project with you and discuss our design approach to this project. Important first steps on any project, and specifically this project, is the initial investigation and the existing conditions survey. The first step would be meeting with you as the owner of the city, the school department, and other stakeholders, and trying to understand not only what needs to be done. We know that the floors need to be replaced, but also trying to understand long term what the program is. We understand there's basketball of activities taking places in these 2 elementary schools, but beyond that, are there any other sports activities to consider for the future? For example, if you're thinking about any volleyball activities or any other activities at this point, this is the time to start thinking about what we need to do to the floor to accommodate those activities, i.e. volleyball, you would have volleyball inserts for the nets. So if that's the case, then we need to make provisions to have these inserts court drill into the existing concrete slabs. Likewise, if you're thinking about providing a podium for any public speaking, then this is the time to start thinking about electrical raceways that might be accommodated under the slab, along with the electrical boxes. So these are some of the things that we should would like to get input from if we were to successful be selected for this project. Another important consideration would be to review any existing documentation that you might have, not only for the existing floors, which we know that there's issues with the existing floors, but adjacent floors too, to figure out how we're going to make these transitions from the proposed floors to the existing floors. Field verification, measure and record the exact square footages and where the doorways are and what have you, and then importantly is to do test cuts and material sample. We understand that around 2019 the city did some testing on the original floors that were built around the same time as the school was built in around 1970. So this would be an important step to take, would be to test cut and core drill the concrete slab for review for strength, moisture, chlorides, and have that analyzed by our design team, including a structural analysis for the concrete slab that would be done by our in-house structural engineer. Michael, next slide, please.
Can you see that?
Yes, thank you. As part of our design approach, we would be looking at different options, whether it's something that you want to change at this point, whether it's game lines. We understand that there's basketball hoops in place, but if there is any other game lines, this is the time to start thinking about these options. As I mentioned before, any other activities, this is the time to start looking at these design options. We would be providing you with cost estimates along the way through the different phases, such as the design development phase and the construction development, the construction document phase. We pride in ourselves in a complete and coordinated set of documents. I think this is the best tool that we as designers can provide you. Have a tight set of construction documents, which would segue into having tight bids. During the contract administration, we would be reviewing the progress of the work, make sure that it conforms with the contract documents. One aspect to this project is to have safety measures in place, such as control of unit price work. And the way we do that is to look at the concrete slab and come up with square footage numbers of any required repairs that are required on the concrete slab. For example, any cracks, any settlement of the slab, and we would be looking for that type of condition so that we can develop a unit price with specific square footages so that the contractor knows what to bid on. We are not afraid to push back on the GC if we see that something is being overlooked, or if there's something along the way that will cause a change order that work is already included in the bid documents, but there's a change order that initiated by the contractor. So we want to make sure that the contractor reviews the contract documents thoroughly and he understands that the work is being done according to the contract documents. We're not just designers; we're also part of the management team. As I mentioned before, a big thing about a big ticket item on this project is to manage unforeseen conditions, and test cuts and mock-ups in place and submittals are important and vital to this process. Michael, next slide. There's a couple of design options. We started brainstorming and a couple of design options. We understand that the existing flooring that you have there now, whether it's a synthetic or a vinyl floor, is about 3/8 of an inch thick. So with that in mind, we're looking at possible an option of having a resilient flooring that's approximately the same thickness as what you have there now. What that does is it's a lower elevation change, so you have slab on grade, you don't have depression on slab, so it's a similar thickness to the existing. In terms of longevity and maintenance, it's slightly less than the wood athletic flooring, but the maintenance is much lower. You just need according to the manufacturer's recommendations, it's a simple way of maintaining it by a dry mop, maintaining the cleanliness of the floor. There's options for finish, whether you want a solid color for the synthetic flooring or you have a faux wood appearance. The wood athletic flooring, that's another option to consider. It's got great durability as opposed to the resilient flooring. However, it's got a higher cost point. One of the important considerations to take into account too is the transition. You're dealing with anywhere from an 1 3/4 inches to possibly 2 3/4 inch assembly for the wood athletic flooring, and transitions into other spaces, i.e., at the doorways. It's something that to be mindful of. Again, maintenance with the wood athletic flooring is a little bit more than the resilient flooring because you have to apply a finish coat once a year, recommended by the manufacturers. Michael, next slide. Some of the potential challenges on this project, obviously, the schedule. We understand that the potential last day of spring school is around the June 14th, June 15th. With that in mind, we want to get this project designed and bid way before that happens, so that we, along with the city, have a contractor on board to start reviewing submittals and having those submittals submitted to the design team for review, so that when they mobilize on site, they have the materials ready to go. We understand that this work must be completed during the summer months when school is in session, so the work has to be completed before school starts sometime in September. Again, material and product lead times, that's the reason why we want to be aggressive with the design and the construction document schedule and the bidding, and have a contractor on board so that these materials, specifically whether it's a wood finish, wood athletic flooring or resilient flooring, is on site and ready to be installed. The elevation and transition changes are something to consider if the city and the school department decides to go with the wood athletic flooring. As you can tell from the picture, currently there's a minor transition strip from the existing flooring to the appears to be a VCT floor. If you went with the wood athletic flooring, you're dealing with a higher elevation. So now, how do we deal with that? And one of the options is to perhaps have slightly ramps at the doorways, which could cause a problem in terms of a tripping hazard, whether it's in the hallway or whether it's in the gymnasium. That ties back to the accessibility issue. Once you provide ramps, you need to maintain a certain slope, a gradient, according to the accessibility code. There's some graphics down below that illustrate, in terms of the overall composition, of what the wood athletic flooring might dictate for the floor finish and transitions to the surrounding existing spaces. Michael, next slide.
Rick, you jumped over abatement real quick. I know you have some.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, I did. I'm sorry. Abatement. So abatement. We understand that removal of the existing flooring is an option. As an option, both the gymnasiums need to be encapsulated, meaning that need to be encapsulated and separated from the rest of the school. Mechanical systems need to be closed off. We also, based on our own experience, we would recommend that air monitoring not only be conducted during abatement activities in the gymnasium, but also be conducted outside surrounding spaces in the gymnasium to make sure that there's no contaminants outside of the enclosed capture areas of the gymnasium. Michael, next slide.
Thanks. So thanks, Rick. I think the other issue consideration in the abatement is, and by the way, we had to do the exact same thing for the North Attleboro High School. They had almost the same floor with the same issues. Is the possibility of leaving it in place, going over it, as long as you don't disturb it. So that's one of those options as well. I want to just wrap up by talking about our cost estimating process, which is basically a 4-part process. We use PM&C as our industrial estimator. We like working with them because they're also construction managers. They assist owners and developers in planning work and taking them through projects. But they also have a lot of renovation experience. If you have experience in construction, you know that renovation costs are different to estimate than a new building where you can get figures right out of a book or based on a square foot. When you talk about renovations, you have to be very specific about the tasks for each part of the project, and it often includes other things that involve existing buildings that are in place, potentially buildings that are occupied. Second thing is we look at market data from recent bids that we're doing similar work right now. So we look at bids that are coming in and we will compare those costs to what we get back from the estimator. So we're not just a pass through. We look at those estimates that come back and we see whether or not they jive with what we're getting back in the market. Third, we'll actually talk to contractors and have them look at a project to say, what do you see? Because often contractors look at a job differently than we do, and they'll oftentimes see things that we should incorporate into a project, which benefits the project. And finally, we temper these estimates with the current bidding climate and location. And what we found recently is as long as we get a lot of bids, more than one, more than two, the bids come in on estimate. But when you only have one bid, sometimes only two, then they can come in high. In terms of the proposed schedule, I think that we've mapped this out so that we can get the project done during the summer. But as Rick said, the challenge here with getting materials, and we know all about the supply chain issues now in the economy, we don't want to be up against the wall in June and not have our materials. So we looked at the design development, the construction document phase, and if it turns out that we're going with a simpler system, it's possible we can cut down that part of the schedule so that we're bidding earlier and we have more time to consider getting those materials in by the contractor. So in conclusion, look, CBI is, as I said, a architectural and engineering firm, and we deal with existing buildings. 65% of our work falls in the public sector. So we know a little something about dealing with municipalities. We do a lot of work in schools. We did another project next door in North Attleboro. We did a roof replacement during school, when school was in session with special needs kids. We didn't have one complaint because we planned it in advance with not only the facility managers and the purchasing folks, but the principal on site and the teachers, and it was very successful. We have a deep technical knowledge of existing buildings. I keep stressing that because it's different dealing with existing buildings than building up from new. I think we've talked about our client-centered outlook. We're going to coordinate with you, ask you what your plans are for the space and your needs for the building. It's a holistic approach, so we're not just in that room. How does this room affect the other parts of the school? How do you get materials in? How do you coordinate that with any summer activities that might be happening there? And finally, again, we're focusing on public bidding. And for us, that means scope, scope, scope. Public bidding and public bid contractors are different than in the private world. And therefore, we know what to include, as Rick said, complete set of plans and specs so that we get good bids and we're not fighting with the contractor during construction. And that's my last slide. And if you can see this, I will go back to, that was the first slide. That was the second slide with our team. Those were our capabilities. That's our experience. And then I talked about that. So there you go. So there were slides.
Okay, well,
Thank you very much. Questions?
thank you.
I'm going to stop sharing.
So we'll start with commission members. Do you have any questions?
Budget,
Terry?
to stay within the budget.
What was your question?
How to, or?
How
Sorry, I
do you
didn't
think
hear.
you are going to be able to stay within the budget?
Oh, we have, Jeremy, how much money do we have here?
800,000?
About 800,000. Is that a realistic number for this project?
I think it is depending on the system you go with. If it's a resilient floor, that is likely to be a good budget. If you're going to go with a wood floor, there's many more considerations and much more construction, and that might not work.
Let me tell you that we looked at the idea of a wood floor and the cost of,
Fading it and then putting down,
but
you
wouldn't
know.
that also affect the height?
Transitions.
So there's a two-part question there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can clarify that question. So that option of keeping the existing floor as is, it will save you money in terms of the abatement and time. However, when you go over that existing floor, you still need to deal with the transition. So if right now, if your existing floor is flush with the VCT, there is an even transition. If you go with the 3/8 of an inch resilient flooring, then all you need is just a beveled transition edge, which is not a significant change in elevation, so that accessibility is not an issue.
Okay, thank you.
And talking to reviewing these conditions.
Mark, did you have a
Yeah,
question?
I have a follow-up question. I didn't contemplate leaving the existing flooring in place. When I look at ASTM F2772, are you familiar with the ASTM standard for these
I
applications?
use that every day. No, I don't, I'm not specifically.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, ASTM F2772 is specifically related to indoor sport courts. And there are 4 components to it: force reduction, surface finish, which is the slide effect, and ball bounce and vertical deformation. So it was always, as the construction consultant to the city, knowing what's in place, it was always the expectation that we were going to be removing it so that we could be in full compliance with ASTM F2772. In your past experience, when you have encapsulated and covered over, have you been in full compliance with this ASTM standard?
That's a great question. I think we oftentimes leave it to the manufacturer who's installing it to do the analysis to be sure that, as you said, you're not getting additional bounce, or you're not reducing the amount of bounce and slip, as you said. So much of that has to do with the over it and encapsulate it in place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, then, we're going to interview, oh, Jerry.
Do you feel there's any asbestos in that material that's existing?
When we spoke, I'm sorry, Michael, if I may answer
No,
that
go
question.
ahead.
When we spoke to our hazmat consultant, this material, our hazmat consultant has come across this type of situation in many different projects. And there is no, based on these materials that were installed, these floors that were installed in the 70s, these materials did not contain asbestos. What they did contain was the mercury vapor, which you have indicated in the RFP. With that said,
The existing flooring Is it mechanical? Is it chemical? And what do you do with the material as you're removing it?
Well, it's primarily mechanical, and it's collected and put in the proper dumpster. This has to be separated. You have to track where this is going. There are very few places in the United States that will take mercury-containing debris that's been abated. But because this material is not friable, that's not a problem in terms of, as if it was asbestos. When it's asbestos, you're really worried about fibers getting in the air. This just becomes pellets as it comes up. And then that's collected and put into the proper.
The concrete is typically a scarified to accept the new finishes. But again, there's a lot of legwork we need to do to really get into the system all the way through the concrete slab to find out what's going on and make those recommendations.
Is the replacement poured on or is it layered on? And chemicals, what chemicals are used in the application of the new surface?
It depends on the product. There's a liquid applied, and there's also a sheet product, right?
Yes, which comes in 6-foot lengths.
6-foot widths.
Oh, I'm sorry, widths, yes.
Widths.
Sorry, no, widths, not
Very long.
Very long, but very narrow, 6 feet.
And when you scarify the top surface of the concrete, if you go with a liquid applied, then it can grab into all the nooks and crannies in the top surface of that textured concrete. If you're going to go with a sheet, then we might level that off and smooth the top where we'd use an adhesive to glue.
Not much. It's very big.
Okay, understand they're connecting.
Someone can hear me.
Aha, we have someone.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, we can hear you. So, thank you for applying to.
Can we share it or?
Please share your screen.
Hello?
Yeah?
I can't hear anybody.
Hello? I can hear everybody here.
I don't know why.
If you want to share your
Anybody
screen,
here?
if you want to share your screen, go ahead.
I don't know what's going on.
Technology.
Chris, can you hear
Share your
us?
screen. Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
oh, I see it.
Can anybody hear me? Because I can't hear anybody. Like in the dark here.
we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Can they see us?
Um,
Our phones are in really bad shape. I know.
Okay, you can hear me. That's good you can hear me, because I can't hear anybody. So this is, we're CSS architects, and we have a little presentation for you. So, and we also have EFI Global on the line. They're our environmental consultants, so they'd be able to speak about the mercury. So this is our team. Be myself, President, Chris Clocher, Project Manager, John Tomaz, Architect, and our cost estimator, Peter Bradley, and our hazmat materials, EFI Global, Keith McCorney and John Boz. This is probably the most recent floor we did in Devon's. And this was, I think, Chris, if you can tell them what this floor was. It's similar to what, I guess, what you have, but not really. It's a liquid floor. So.
Yeah. So what they had at the Proctor School, they had essentially just a rollout floor. It was beyond its useful life. It was pulling apart the seams, and it was time for a new one. We went through several different products, ranging from a floating or a ventilated natural wood to another rollout, and then finally also this product here, which is a fluid appliance. So it's basically there's a mat that gets rolled out, and then 2 coats of self-leveling. Forgive me for not knowing the actual term, but essentially just liquid coatings that go right over each other. And what was nice about that, it's self-leveling, so it took out any sort of imperfections in the floor. And it came with a real 20-year warranty for wear. And this has now been in use for 3 years. And I actually just did a follow-up on this. No complaints. Everything's working great. They like the product, and so it was a really good installation.
Yeah, I gotta find the number now. I don't know where the number is.
Yeah, Kai's just gonna call. She's having a
Alright.
mic problem. She's just gonna call in on the telephone. Yeah, so we couldn't. I had a conflict. My wife works on Mondays, so I had to come home for the kids. So that's why we weren't able to come down. So now we're stuck with my technical problems, I guess.
Okay.
Are you speaking? We see a slide, but we don't hear anything.
I can hear you now.
Great.
I unplugged your microphone. You get echo.
Yeah, we're echoing.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay. Well, I can hear myself. It's like
Well, yeah, unplug the mic.
unplugged the mic. That better? No, I can still hear myself talking.
Oh, it's your mic on top of your monitor.
Okay.
Or mute your telephone.
All right. Now?
Yeah, just. Oh, yeah, that's gonna be good now.
What?
Yeah, you're good.
It works now.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah, now I don't hear echoing. All right, Chris. I assume you explained that first slide there and this one too? This is-
No.
Yeah, this was an older, I mean, this is probably one of the first wood floors we've done. So we obviously don't get a chance to do too many wood floor refinishing, but this was a wood floor in Needham High School. And then there's, I guess we had some various armories. We did wood floors. Right, Chris?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, most recently we did the Gardner Armory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, we have experience with several different types. I mean, I must say, this one looks, you can say worn. This is by far the toughest looking one as far as this the age.
So I would like EFI Global to talk about the big part of this is obviously it's not giving you a new floor. Now, anybody can do that. The big part is getting rid of what you have and disposing of it, and the way to do it. So I guess if John or Keith, you want to talk about this, that'd be appreciated.
Sure. Can you hear me? This is Keith with EFI.
Yeah, I can hear you, Keith.
Okay, great. Thanks. And yeah, John Vaz is on. I saw the prior reports and the air study that you did. Very common. That's what we've done in some other schools. And with the removal of it, there's kind of a two-step process. One is, of course, doing it very similar to an asbestos abatement project where you put the gym under negative pressure. What we've done in the past is you got to create a false ceiling so that you're not trying to put that entire gymnasium under negative pressure. Instead, they can rope across the gym and have a poly ceiling. It also allows for better dust control, smaller area where this material is going to be disturbed. And then as part of the design process, I think what we'd want to do is do some TCLP testing of the mercury issue to just verify that it does need to go out as mercury hazardous waste, which it probably does just based on the prior bulk sampling and other sampling that had been done. But it's done very similar to an asbestos abatement project, and there requires some DEP notification, and basic dust control, HEPA filter, negative pressure, air scrubbing, of course, and monitoring outside the work area to verify those other areas unimpacted. The removal of it is typically in cubic yard bins, those cardboard bins that are used for the waste disposal itself, but they're able to be carted out of the area and everything. Positively pressurizing around the work area is good too, because again, it keeps any of the vapors from leaking out. Or it's really more about the dust issue. The vapors are already there if, in the quantities you guys have measured. But that's basically it. It's getting at the material all the way down to the substrate. We'd work that out with CSS as far as doing test cuts or looking at your test cuts and seeing where the material is, where it stops, where other material begins, maybe that still needs to be removed and maybe could be removed, by others and not under the abatement procedure. But, it really is most likely about getting all the way down the substrate. Doesn't look like with the glues they've used that we've seen in the past that you can really separate out the wood and dispose of that one way. If that is an option, great, but usually this stuff is just so stuck together that it's not necessarily possible. And we'd be doing, there's real-time reading monitors. I think were used in your prior report that again, we can monitor during the work, verifying that we can show that you're not exceeding any levels outside the work area while that's occurring.
Okay. Here's our schedule, just based on probably what was in the RFP. So we have the bidding would be in March, and anticipate the start of this would be in April, finishing the end of the summer. So, of course, we're flexible depending on what your schedule is. Or is this gym in a school that's occupied right now?
Yes.
Assume it is, but the gym's not being used.
No, it is.
Okay. Couldn't hear that. All right. Well, I don't know if I don't have any more to add about the schedule. So CSS is a small firm. We're up in Wakefield, Mass. We have anywhere from 10 to 12 people, depending on our workload. We've been in business since 1978. We do a lot of work with schools for the MSBA, so we understand the sensitivity of working in schools and occupied schools, and obviously the need to get work done during the summer. Most of our jobs, that's what happens. They need to get the work done while the school's not occupied. And we are basically most of our work is all public bid, so we understand the public bid process. And we're easily accessible. You can call us and we'll answer the phone or reply as soon as, we receive your emails. So I think, we definitely could do this job and do it well, and hopefully would go smoothly and come under budget, and everybody would be, very happy at the end of the job. So I guess that's all I have to say. But thank you for asking us to present. And I don't know if you have any questions.
Let me ask the commission members, do you have any questions? Mark? Do you have any questions?
The one question I have is whether or not we could encapsulate the existing floor with its existing off-gassing, or whether or not it needs to be removed.
Good question. It's probably something for EFI. Well, you could encapsulate first off just through other materials and then contaminate that material.
Yeah, it's, as we saw in the prior studies with TRC and the air monitoring done, and we've done similar where the recommendation is to increase the HVAC into the area, to keep the levels below what is acceptable levels, and there's a variety of them. The state has one level, a couple different national, EPA and other national organizations have different levels, but the state's levels generally the lowest. And with the HVAC increase that you guys did in the prior study there, it'll probably be pretty close to the same after that from a vapor perspective.
Anybody have any other questions?
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that we can look into, and we can, we go to discuss what your proposed product would be, or if it's, if that's the way you wanted to go, then we could, that might narrow the flooring selection down. But it's clearly something that would be on the table.
Okay. I want to thank you for taking the time to appear before.
Mark, could you imagine working with CSS?
I think it's pretty obvious.
the answer, but.
I don't know.
Well, let me just give you, having compared and contrasted the two responses, CSS they do 95% of their work, public work, whereas CBI does 65%. Either of them have the necessary skills and qualifications to do that. CSS, according to their submission, had 4 prior gymnasium floors, whereas really no. CBI did outline everything, the personnel and the allocation of resources. So that's a pretty tail of the tape for the responses. Obviously, we get a whole different, I got a whole different feeling from the interview process. And I will say one other thing about CBI. They know the city. They're currently working here in the city. They did a very similar thing that they did on the fire station roofs here in an attempt to understand and develop the approach. Obviously, we need to have an initial conversation with whoever is selected to let them know that we're looking at a 300 lineal feet of crack repair in your base bid, and then give us a unit price, and then give us a credit if, in the event, we don't need to do that. So that's something, trying to take an unknown, making it known, and then managing and mitigating the downside risk. So these are things that I would bring to the table to work with our vendor on. So either one, I think, they're licensed architects, they're competent. I said this about the roofing folks, but obviously there's a feeling in the room, I sense, from the interview process. So I'm going to be quiet now and let you do your job.
Jackie, do you have anything you want to say?
I was a little concerned that they didn't really have any idea about the encapsulation, the second group, the CSS group.
Yeah.
The fact that we'd have to talk to the vendor, they didn't seem to have any plan, where CBI did have an idea of what would be entailed and what could be done. Other than that,
It's just confidence. I have more confidence in CBI overall, just in their presentation.
Yeah.
I agree. I was more impressed with CBI and their project approach, their method of communication and outreach to the stakeholders involved and everyone in the school system. So I would vote for CBI. I do have a question, and I probably should have asked them this, but I know last time they were just CBI consulting when they went out for the roof project. Are they now?
They've been acquired.
They're acquired by this company.
They were
The
CBI, a
Socotec.
division of Socotec, and now, as time's gone on, I believe they're adopting the Socotec national label.
Oh, okay.
Right.
They're just, and as I say, it's all about planning and carrying through. And CBI, just on the basis of that, I would say that they're a better company to deal with.
Okay. Any thoughts, Jeremy?
From the last time we did designer selection, I know the commission has a preference to not reward repeat work or not award, the same sort of vendors every once in a while. So when I had first gotten these and saw how similar they were approach-wise, I thought CSS probably just had the leg up to begin with. And then I thought their presentation absolutely fell flat tonight. I thought they were underprepared, as you said, about planning. We're also a year and a half into using Zoom. If you couldn't figure out Zoom, that doesn't say a ton.
And really committed to doing, and will drive hard and make sure that they get focused really, really quickly, whoever gets selected. So I just basically wanted to say that. And then the second point was, I gauge architects not based on their dog and pony shows or their presentations. I gauge them on the 4 corners of the architectural documents, the project manual, the plans and the specifications together. I was very impressed. I am very impressed with CBI, and those are pretty much my own comments, so thank you.
I think my feelings very much reflect what's already been said. To echo Jeremy, I thought, well, gee, maybe we should not put too many eggs in one basket, and so I thought CSS might be the clubhouse leader going in. But frankly, I don't think they knew anything about our job. They didn't know if the school was occupied. They thought they could start in April. And I agree, Jeremy, that they were unprepared. And for someone who lives by preparation, that's how I judge people. You know?
So the school committee voted to follow DESI's mask mandates through at least mid-January. So I think City Hall is going to get ahead of that, especially after the holidays. So best case, February meeting.
How about the room at the high school? Are we reusing?
Well, so there's two questions there. One is that, could we, for our December meeting, meet in City Hall and just have the, whoever is going to be presenting to us appear electronically? I think that's easy for Jim to do, right? So could we do that? Because I'd like to go back to in-person. I really
I'll run it by the mayor because I don't know how many in-person meetings are happening at City Hall right now, but
Well, the zoning board, the planning board, and the conservation commission are meeting all the time.
all right. So yeah, let's plan on December then, and I'll let you know if it changes.
And then in terms of your second question, Jerry, I think that probably thinking that we keep remote for the school building December 1st meeting, is that when it is?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Next Wednesday?
That's next Wednesday already.
It's next Wednesday.
Do we have to have a meeting?
Yeah, you're gonna have to pay some bills, so we're gonna have to have a meeting.
We
We can do
that.
the 8th if you prefer.
You wanna push us back to the 8th? What's your sense, group?
Doesn't matter.
Let me just check my schedule.
Because SBC is on the 15th.
Yeah, SBC is on the 15th. I could certainly, I can.
We go home to Zoom?
Yeah.
Then we go home to Zoom, yes.
Home via Zoom.
And it would be, well, put it this way, can you ask the school department, because if we're there at the new school, if we went next door to the Zero Room, would that work? Why don't you ask them that?
I'm going to at least send an email to myself so I see it in the morning to remember to do it.
Excuse me?
So I'm going to send an email at least to myself so I remember to do it.
Okay.
Can I just give you a quick 30-second update on the roofs?
Yes.
They're underway.
Good.
All the material has been stockpiled on the headquarters roof. They've removed.
The issue with the antennas that needed to come in.
He's working on it. It's not the first thing that we need to do. The mason, we can schedule around them. It's just really doing 2 courses of masonry and putting a new cap on it. So we could defer that to work with the chief. Well, the bigger issue was his kitchen. We're going to be removing the hood and removing the membrane and installing new supporting joists. And he says, absolutely, I need to use my kitchen every day. And then when I explained it to him, I said, well, Chief, you're the AHJ and you can say whatever you want, but I'm telling you, it's not an appropriate